Germany scrambles to keep up gas supplies. Oh. And this is the future. This is this winter. This is this year. So if your plan is to go to Europe to escape America's fuck-ups, it ain't gonna work.
Germany is looking for gas, with Russia severely lowering deliveries. Norway and Qatar jumped in, but with many looking anxiously towards heating season, Norway says it cannot increase its gas supplies to Germany. It already delivers all the gas it can. That's according to Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre during a press conference which he held with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Oslo. Any further boost would necessitate new gas discoveries. Previously, Qatar announced that it cannot deliver more gas either. Now, the fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine has pushed gas prices in Europe to new records. Future contracts trading in Amsterdam saw sharp increases when Russia invaded Ukraine back in February, and more hikes when it reduced deliveries to European countries. Now, last year, Russian imports accounted for more than half of gas deliveries to Europe, with almost a third of gas demand coming from the industry and just over 40% from households. Political leaders in Berlin say they are doing what they can to replace Russian gas with renewable energies, but that'll take time. Last year, Russian gas deliveries accounted for almost 500 million gigawatt hours of energy. So far this year, only 3,500 gigawatt hours were added in solar and only 1,500 in wind energy. So let's get Carol Nachles' view on this. She is the head of the advisory firm Crystal Energy. Welcome to DW, Carol. Germany is trying to transition away from Russian gas. By the looks of it, the country still has...
if you're an EU chatter, I would definitely recommend picking up some electric heaters. I would definitely recommend it. I might even get one of those solar panel like phone chargers. You might want to consider getting like a small unfoldable solar charger because there might be blackouts and shit. So usually the cell phone towers are going to stay up, but I would consider that. Electricity prices have shot through the roof too, Mike. Yeah. I mean, a gas or diesel generator, I mean, sure, you could pick that up too, but your gas prices, will also skyrocket if things happen like we think are going to happen. And if I was, if I'm in Germany right now, I'm opening up every nuclear plant that we've closed. I'm stopping and halting and reversing every single decommissioning that happened. It's rough now. Imagine getting a blackout in negative 20 degrees C, and not all houses have wood-burning stoves. We don't use gas much for heating or cooking, though. Mostly electric here. Yeah. I mean, Germany is in trouble because they rely on fossil fuels quite a bit. Let me see. Man, there was a website I had, and I lost it. Fuck. Which showed the EU energy generation live. It was like a map. I would be so sure nuclear would bail them out. Successive heat waves are putting French nuclear reactors under strain. Nuclear power plants normally generate roughly 70% of electricity in France, making nuclear's share of the energy mix there higher than in any other country. But more than half of the country's 56 reactors have been closed for several months due to planned or extraordinary maintenance. And about a fifth of them would normally need to interrupt their activity or at least reduce it to a bare minimum, as the water temperature of rivers in which the plants discharge their cooling water exceeds a certain limit. I mean, it looks like it's working, but yeah, climate change makes nuclear plants less viable too, because the temperature of rivers and the droughts. Jesus Christ. Is this it? No, this is not quite what I was talking about. It was cooler than this. It was like, it showed like the active transfers of power that were happening. It was like a grid monitor. Oh, I think this is it. Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah. And it showed you like the carbon intensity of each country's like energy. And you could see the energy flows, right? Like Poland. Poland. That's a lot of coal plants. Germany. The best countries are, Austria, Switzerland, France, and then the Scandinavian countries. Like if you look at Norway, right? Like they're like 94, 99%, 100% renewable. Norway's like, oh yeah, we drill oil and gas, but we're not stupid. We don't burn it ourselves. We sell it to idiots. Ukraine live data temporarily unavailable. You don't say. So you like look at Austria, right? Austria gets most of their energy in hydro, and then they store 6.2% of electricity available in Austria comes from hydro storage. So they have dams, and then they fill these reservoirs up with excess energy, you know? Or they have more energy from wind or solar. They use it to fill their hydro storage. And then they have the fossil fuel they rely on the most is gas, which is 8%. 8.05 electricity available in Austria comes from gas, utilizing 12.92% of installed capacity, representing 22.98% of emissions. So Austria is exposed to the natural gas as well, but at a much less of a rate than, say, Germany, right? Germany gets the vast majority of their electricity from, you know, they rely extensively on coal, gas, and much less so on hydro. They don't have as many, you know, mountains as Austria does. They have like a lot of wind and solar generation, but it's not actually happening. Solar also goes down in winter. That's right. If you look at France, they're the nuclear boy. Nuclear, wind, solar, hydro. They have a little bit of gas. Dude, chill. They said gas will deplete in the summer. It didn't happen, and there will be a bad fall. But when the gas crisis is too big, we will open Nord Stream 1. But to say Germany will collapse in the winter is dumb and fear-mongering. Did I say? I didn't say they will collapse. I'm saying you should probably prepare for disruptions to your electricity. We are the most powerful player in the EU. We can break any sanction if we want to. The SPD broke the sanction when they bought cheap Eastern fossil fuel in the Cold War. So it will not surprise if we do it again. Well, the thing is, it's not that the Germans are not trying to buy it. It's that the Russians are not delivering it. The Russians are the ones not delivering it. It's not the Germans that are not buying it. They want to buy it. The Russians are not giving it to them. Solar is 50% less output in winter. Yeah. It's not useless. It's just, you know, it produces less energy because the angle of the sun in the sky is lower, so you don't get that direct, and it's in the sky shorter period of time. You don't get that direct stuff. And Bosnia is really carbon intense. Kosovo as well. Like, wherever NATO goes, they have a very carbon intense energy system. Weird. Look at the Shetlands, chat. Or the Orkney. This is the Orkney. And the Shetlands are up here, right? Yeah. So we don't have any data for the Shetlands. The Orkney Islands. 100% renewable. Do you know what it is, chat? You know what's going on in the Orkney Islands? Wind. Because it's windy as fuck there. This is one of the windiest places in the world.
It's quite a way to go. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not easy. If it was, for example, oil or coal, you would have found it maybe a faster solution. But gas, by its nature, is a long-term business. You rely on pipeline gas, which took decades to build and to be functioning and to be filled up. So it's not something that can happen overnight. I know that Germany is working very hard on reducing its consumption of natural...
Relevant TikTok. All right, hold on. By the way, did you hear what she said about natural gas? That's why you can't celebrate natural gas being used to replace coal, because it's a long-term business that's there for a while. So if we build natural gas infrastructure, we're going to be dependent upon it for decades, which we can't do.
The French government basically said that they're going to start producing less nuclear energy. And you'd say, well, why would they do that? Well, it turns out because, you know, the temperatures are so high, you cannot use the water to cool these nuclear reactors because the exiting water is then so hot that it would actually destroy the ecosystem of the lakes and rivers that they use to feed natural fresh water in to cool the nuclear reactor. Second, because it's so hot, all the rivers are below their natural level. Barges that carry coal and nat gas are getting stuck on the Danube. The Po, which is the longest river in Italy that feeds all the fields, actually is below the level where it can actually offload the water. So farmers can't basically do what they need to do to produce a food supply. So if you play all of that out, you start to see an issue where by, October, November of this year, we're back into the same complexity where energy is the tip of the spear around which everybody starts to debate, all of the national security issues that we have to deal with. The French government basically said that they're going to start producing.
Well, the river water temperatures will decline as you go into the winter. So that is obviously good. With that in mind, Mike, these dangerously low rivers are going to cripple the UU economy. Yeah, we've been talking about it. It's bad. It's really bad.
Gas, and particularly of natural gas coming from Russia, and they have done, significant progress to date. But to say it's going to turn its back entirely on it, it's not just Germany, many European countries and many countries around the world as well. It's going to take a while. This is the reality of the gas business, unfortunately.
So even with the political motivation to turn away from Russian gas, Germany will still need Kremlin-approved gas in the future, for that matter.
Well, in the future, again, this is a question of time. So in the future, in the longer term, there's plenty of gas around and not necessarily coming from Russia. It just takes time to take that gas out of the ground, put it, either in pipeline or on ships like LNG, liquefied natural gas. You do have available, but it just takes time to build the terminals to export it. And even if they are there, you need the terminals to import it. And that's what you don't have in Germany. This is going to be built. But when you have more LNG coming to Germany, then you don't really need Russian gas. You can do easily without Russian gas, but that will take time.
Now, there are people who are fearing a gas shortage when it comes to heating season in the coming months, not only in Germany, but in other countries in Europe as well. Should it come to that, who should be prioritized, companies or households?
Well, look, it's a question of balancing economics with morality and political interest. But usually, I think most governments would agree that households should be given the priority, and then industries will have to cope. Even the economic cost might be much more significant. But if I were to answer it from a moral perspective, I would say households should come first.
Big efforts are underway in Europe, as I mentioned, to move away from Russian gas. But if we look at other parts in the world, what does the picture there look like?
Well, it seems that, it's very variable, because in the US, for example, we have with the Biden administration, they are going quite aggressively on climate change. But in the last bill that they passed, the Inflation Reduction Act, we can see that they are almost giving similar treatment to green energy and electric vehicles as also conventional oil and gas. Asia is pretty hardcore. They will stick to fossil fuel for as long as it takes because they put great emphasis on energy security, quite rightly so, because I think what Europe came to realize after this energy.
Oh, wait, China is right again? This is one of the things that people have criticized China for is President Xi has been like, the number one thing I'm going to do is ensure that we have the energy that we need for our economy to be stable. Obviously, climate change is real and it's a serious crisis, but I'm not going to sacrifice China's energy security. I'm not going to get into an environment where the United States can sail a fleet to the Malacca Strait and then my entire country starts starving. That's not happening. So they are pushing ahead with making themselves independent of foreign coercion as their number one goal, while also investing massively in renewable energy. So a lot of people have been like, oh, China is the number one emitter, and they are, because most of the world has located their industrial capacity there in China. So it's a lot of our deferred consumption, right? Like, if I go to Walmart and buy a bunch of crap and consume it, but it was all made in China, whose emissions are those? Are those China's emissions or are those America's emissions? That's a question I offer for you, chat. Whose emissions should those be? Are those China's emissions or are they American emissions? You tell me what you think. Why not both? I think that it's rightfully the way that you should. Here's my view. Now that you've all given me mine, you say the world's, you say both. I personally think it should be where it's consumed. Because that's where the standard of living is being improved. So I think that you should have consumption adjusted emissions. Like, if I take an American company and locate it overseas because I know they won't regulate carbon there and produce a bunch of emissions, that I get a free trade deal where I could go sell it in my home country for profit, I think that home country should be the place where the emissions are allocated. So you get an actual look where, the people with the highest standard of living, they're actually emitting the most, and not the place that's being exploited and having their labor force exploited and their environment polluted. They don't get blamed for what is raising the standard of living of people in Europe and the United States and Japan and, etc. So that's what I think makes sense to me. Now, the part of that is, well, now we have to go to China. How do we stop those, outsourced emissions from being produced in the first place? Well, you have to regulate it with trade deals. You have to have your own industry, and you got to shackle your own capitalists so they can't do that. Siemens could fix 6 turbines from Nord Stream 1, but Canada can arrest those turbines again. Russia is ready to launch Nord Stream 2 any moment, but Germany's politicians are too stubborn or even corrupt, weak, and incompetent. No, they shut down Nord Stream 2. Nord Stream 1 has been repaired, from what I understand.
Crisis is that you cannot really separate between climate security and energy security and focus only on climate security. You cannot achieve climate security, climate targets without meeting the requirements of energy security first. And that's what we're seeing today in Europe, a more leniency towards investments in gas, for example. And that's why gas has been classified as a green investment in the EU following the crisis.
Carol, briefly, if you could, how long?
Manufacturing goods for export was a choice set up by the government of China for how to improve the economic standards of the country. Just because someone wants what they make doesn't take the responsibility away from them. So, in your worldview, which I'm going to describe as neo-colonialist, the colonized country that was in abject poverty because of 50 years of sanctions, accepting foreign investment to build up their country is to blame for the emissions and pollution and exploitation of their people by foreign capital, because they also had other policies that have actually enriched the country and taken advantage of that foreign capital. Basically saying we didn't outsource, China insourced. Where did they get the money to build those factories? Where did they get access to the market to sell their stuff? My company, Fisher-Price, moved our tooling and plants to China and closed our U.S. plants. Our tooling, our products, our decision, our pollution. No shit! By the way, you know what I say about China's government? They are smart. They had a country with the most people on earth, and it was highly educated and healthy. The government had done what it could do, but it needed more investment. It needed raw resources. It needed money to be able to build their country up. And the way to get access to that money in a capitalist world is to get capital. So they took foreign capital and they chained it and they locked it up and they put a bit in the wild horse's mouth and they've driven across the world to become the second most largest power. They subjugated our capitalists and made them their little bitch, and they have developed their country tremendously. Good job. They fucking succeeded in their goals. With gangbusters. And yeah, now we're dealing with that reality. And you know what? How are they approaching climate change? How are they approaching it? They're approaching it by being the #1 investor in climate change and green energy, dwarfing the US. A country with hundreds of millions of people that it has pulled out of deep poverty is also out investing us in the future. So I would just say, what do you want me to say? Bad China for doing the rational thing to make your country better? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you want from me? Oh man, China bad for doing the right thing for their people. What? I grew up in Washington State for 27 years, and now we get to smoke from Cali every year. Never happened as a kid. Yeah, it's called wildfires that are out of control. Now, does that mean everything China does is good? No, they make a lot of fucking mistakes. I disagree with a lot of the shit they do, but it makes sense. It's rational. Most of the stuff the US does is irrational from the point of view of Americans. I got trouble in my uni classes when I pointed out how green China was becoming my international studies classes. Oh yeah, I'm sure the libs were losing their minds if you do that. Years of lib propaganda have taught me to say China bad. It's so funny that they say China bad as the capitalist class made trillions investing in China. Like, oh, China's so bad. Anyway, Walmart good, Wall Street good. Who do you think invested there? Me? Did UAW go over to China and set up plants? Jesus Christ, it's Wall Street. It's capitalists that did it. They saw a labor force and a country they could exploit. So they did. And now you're mad at China? Incredible.
What will it take for a highly industrialized nation like Germany to move away from fossil fuels, to become independent from fossil fuels?
Well, it will take a while. It will take really decades and not years.
Carol Nachtley, founder and CEO of advisory firm Crystal Energy. Carol. Thank you for your time.
All these people be like, yeah, we should invest in more natural gas. The product that's put us over a barrel. Incredible brains. An extreme heat belt will soon emerge in the U.S., study warns. Counties expected to experience heat indexes above 125 degrees Fahrenheit by 2053. Spider Mike, thanks for another one. Yep. So apparently all the territory around the Mississippi is going to be fucked up. Yikes. And the Ohio River Valley, most of it. Oof. Texas? Oof. Most of those coastal counties will be underwater. In just 30 years, climate change will cause the lower 48 states to be a far hotter and more precarious place to be during the summer. The report, based on First Street's peer-reviewed heat model, shows that the number of Americans currently exposed to extreme heat, defined as having a maximum heat index greater than 125, is just 8 million. However, due to the anticipated warming during the next 3 decades, that number is expected to balloon to 107 million people. From northern Texas to Illinois, and includes the cities of St. Louis, Kansas City, Memphis, Tulsa, and Chicago. Oof. Great. Great to see. Great to see. You love to see it. Are you watching the stream unsubbed? You're making income inequality worse. You are doing anti-praxis. We are the only Twitch stream that will not accept scam advertisers, and I will never fuck you over by selling you crap.